Hi everyone, this is the first story in my new series. It's called Daddy Goes to Bingo. Hope you like it. Here we go. In a tiny quiet village not so far from here is a house sitting in the middle of a street. But this house wasn't quiet. Far from it. In fact, it was quite the opposite. There was always something going on at number 29 Queen's Road, and today was no different. The residents of this not so quiet house were Mr. and Mrs. Hindle, and that's Joyce and Len to you and me. They were a very funny couple, and they had an absolutely enormous family. When I say enormous, I mean gigantic, huge, colossal, mammoth-sized. Between them, they had 7 children, 13 grandchildren, and 15 great-grandchildren, and they were all regular visitors to number 29. Mr. Hindle often called his house the zoo, as he had so many visitors coming and going from his house. Some of his grandchildren often came round for tea at number 29, after they had finished school. Mrs. Hindle would have tea ready on the table by 4:15 p.m, and Mr. Hindle would be sitting comfortably on his sofa in the living room, with his newspaper laid out over his legs, and his feet stretched out on the buffet. He would be singing along to his German Umpire band music on the TV. This made him very happy. Then his grandchildren would arrive, and chaos would take over. Mr. Hindle's peace and quiet was gone, and so too was his German Umpire band music on the TV. "Oh no," he would say. "What are you lot doing here? Not you again. Doesn't your mum and dad ever feed you anymore? Ha ha!" He would laugh and joke about it, and then give all his grandchildren a big squeeze. Mrs. Hindle, meanwhile, was in her favourite room, the kitchen, as she dished out the tea. The smell of the deep fat fry lingered throughout the house. It must be a sausage and chips day. As her grandchildren sat around the kitchen table, Mrs. Hindle smiled to herself, whilst casually letting out the occasional fart as she walked across the room. She loved seeing her grandchildren. Mrs. Hindle was a very cuddly person. She was kind and caring, and very, very scatty. She also had 2 big passions in her life, horse racing and bingo. Nobody liked playing bingo more than her. But, you see, to most people, bingo is a game of chance and a game of fun. For Joyce Hindle, bingo was her sport. She was very determined to win every single game she played. She was extremely competitive. Her biggest bingo rival was also one of her best friends, Shirley, who lived further along up the street. Shirley was a lovely little lady who had a lot of luck when it came to bingo. She won all the time. There was a time when she won 10 weeks in a row, and this made Mrs. Hindle very jealous indeed. Joyce and Shirley played bingo on Monday and Friday evenings, and also on Saturday afternoons, and that was when Mr. Hindle went to watch his sons and grandsons play football. But that is another story. Sometimes she took her grandchildren to play bingo too. On Monday nights in the village hall, the half-time raffle was the big thing. Who was going to win the big packet of rich tea biscuits? It was usually Shirley. Ha ha! Today it was Monday, but Joyce and Shirley were going to play without their grandchildren. It was still early evening, and Mr. Hindle was pottering about in his shed when he saw a familiar face dangling from the top of his window frame. It was Daddy Shortlegs. "Oh, it's you," laughed Len. "How many little children have you terrorised today?" he asked. Daddy just grinned. Just then, Mr. Hindle had a very naughty idea and whispered something to Daddy. "How would you like to have some fun and terrorise some nice old ladies at bingo tonight?" "Ha ha!" he said. Daddy had an enormous smile on his face, but then he remembered. He didn't know what bingo was about. Mr. Hindle explained what it was all about, and when Daddy discovered there was money involved, his greedy eyes lit up. Secretly, Len picked him up and popped the gangly-legged spider into Mrs. Hindle's handbag. "Now remember, scare as many old ladies as you can," giggled Mr. Hindle. At the village hall, everyone took to their seats. Joyce and Shirley sat next to each other. They both eyed up the rich tea biscuit sitting on the side of the bar. "Eyes down, first number," called a voice. It was Big John. He was a regular bingo caller, along with his mate, Kenny Bean. 3 books in, and still no win for Joyce. Shirley, meanwhile, had already won 2 lines and a house. In the next game, both ladies got down to 1 number to win the next house. Then, Daddy poked his head up from inside Mrs. Hindle's handbag. He sneaked out, crawled along the table, and up her arm. He perched himself on her shoulder, whilst Joyce was completely unaware. "2 little ducks, 22, said John, and just at that very moment, Daddy jumped down from her shoulder onto Mrs. Hindle's bingo book. "Geronimo!" shouted Daddy. Joyce took one look at Daddy and shrieked. "Boo!" went Daddy. "Wah!" wailed Joyce, and he threw her bingo books high into the air. "We have a winner!" shouted John. "No, we don't," replied Joyce sternly. We have a spider situation. Get off my bingo book, she yelled. Get off my dabber, she cried, waving her arms in the air. Daddy crawled all over the table. He jumped from one bingo book to another, making all the other old ladies leap from their seats. Everyone was moving up and down like they were doing the Mexican wave. Ha ha! Shirley found it all hilarious. Ha ha ha, she chuckled to herself. Somebody do something, cried Joyce, and grabbed the packet of rich tea biscuits from the bar. Then she began chasing after Daddy, trying to splat him with the rich teas. I'll get you, she said, and Daddy ran off laughing. Secretly, watching on from outside in the school playground, Mr. Hindle had been enjoying himself enormously. That spider could come in very handy, he laughed. Ha ha! He found Daddy on the doorstep of the village hall. Good work, he whispered to Daddy, and put him on his shoulders. Same time next week. Ha ha! And that is the end of the story. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next time.